Alright guys, I had someone request a video, and the video was for a tier list for all kinds of troops, as well as a recommended team. Now I kind of already went over a recommended team, but this is going to be as of January 12th, 2022. The max you can have is 2 stars. You can only have that on one ant. So the star system doesn't really affect teams until you get to the 3rd star. So I'm not ignoring it, but it only certain ants are really affected by it, and those ants are already in the correct tiers from where they should be. So first thing I want to look at this is from Umbrous Darkness. Here is the correct DPS for the maximum, listed by the maximum DPS that it's able to get with perfect RNG in the average. So if you see, Chicory is at the top of both, and then you have Golden Armor up there, Giant Tooth is up there, JJ is up there, Reap's up there, Mimicry. So of course these are all going to be in the top category. So the way I did these categories is separate them into 6 classes. At the very bottom, obviously you have Spiny. For PvP, he is not good. This is going to be a PvP list, by the way, too. I'm going to put that in the title. He's just not good. Damage is beaten out by skills to begin with, and when you add it to PvP, it just makes it almost not usable. Lower levels, it's okay to use, as I've said in other videos, but once you get to the point where we're talking about max ants and 1 and 2 stars, it's not worth having. So obviously, up here, we have the masters, Chicory, Reap, and Mimicry, for each category. So these, as a whole, depending on what you're using them for, are typically going to be in the back row. They're going to be the DPSers, those things doing the damage. You can run other different troop types, but the meta right now is to do 1 or 2 stalls, or 1 stall and a heal, or 1 debuff and a heal, whatever you want to call it, or 2 debuffs, and then a DPS. The best DPS right now, if you look at the list, because that list makes it really easy. You gotta love Umbrous Darkness and his people for doing this. But it makes it really easy to see what you want. At the very, very top, Golden Venom is up there. He's something that if you can get, and you can 8-star it, that's something in the future that you would definitely want to get, because once you get into 8 stars, that's it. But obviously, if you carry a Chicory, Golden Armor's up there. Giant Tooth is up there. JJ, Reap, Mimicry. Slim is actually up there too. He got buffed. Bullet with the average, JJ, etc., etc., right? So if you look, my list reflects that. It's not, the reason Giant Tooth is SS class is not because of damage per second. It's actually because he has 2 debuffs and he's such a high damage. And the way I did this list is, if you look, if you don't have Chicory, you don't have Reap, you don't have Mimicry, you don't have dupes for it, you can substitute those for Jack Jumper or Golden Venom. Or Golden Venom, you substitute into Chicory, etc. There's only one alternate here. And the Gold Armor is the opposite. It's if you want that second row of DPS, you don't want it to be hitting the back, you want it to be hitting the front, and that's why Golden Armor is here too, because he has a specific role and he plays it. I do realize now, after I made this list, in S-Class, Slim Arch is also in there, because he has a lot of DPS, and for his 8 skill, he also has a silence, or I'm sorry, a suppression effect. So I will put this in the description, but he is going to be S-Class as well. But he's an alternate for Giant Tooth as well as Bullet Ant. Banshee Panda was hugely nerfed, so was Brown Rogue. White Velvet is great. In an ideal world where you can get it to 8 stars right now, I would probably have it in SS class specifically for shooters or carriers. It works honestly great with both. It is still somewhat situational, but I would normally categorize it. But since you can only get 2, you can only have 2 at the moment, it's an S class because you can't star it up. You can't get the 1 star, you can't get the 2 star. And even if you were to say have a JJ or Giant Tooth, something else start up, it's still not worth having in there. In my personal opinion, it's best as an alternate, or if you're running something super situational. New World General is great to lead carriers. So New World General could also be considered double S class as a support for carriers. Rock Bandit, I would actually say, in my opinion, from what I've seen where people are having luck with Guardians, in order to win more often than you lose, you want Rock Bandit and or Brown Rogue. Enigmatic Tailor is a alternate for New World General. If for some reason you can't get New World General, which is actually more common than Enigmatic Tailor, or you don't have a dupe or something, then that's a good alternate in a similar way that Giant Tooth, like for Giant Tooth. Another good team would be New World General, and then Giant Tooth, and then a Reap Master, Chicory, or something like that. A class. I know a lot of people like to run Dark Giant, but once you start starring it up and trying to get it to fit with all these others, especially being a support class, it doesn't make sense. New World General is better, Enigmatic Tailor is better. And you can't put it really in the back row. It just doesn't make sense to have. Black Cancer, I put partly because he's a Guardian, and as I've said, you need Rock Bandit and or Brown Rogue. It's nothing to take away from Black Cancer, but they are a step up. Banshee Velvet, I put into A class for PvP. It is great for PvE against lizards, against hogs, but not as much in the front spot or even the second spot. It's better to have gold armor. Dark Hercules, I'm just not even going to get into that. It needs work. Super situational. I have seen people with it where it works, but these people, I've also seen them getting beat pretty bad with it in other reports. Golden Sugar. Now, the reason I have Golden Sugar so low, a lot of people are going crazy because it got a huge boost. The reason I have that in A class and not in S class or double S class is because the role it fills. It is less than Jack Jumper. It's less than Gold Armor. Less in DPS than Giant Tooth. Definitely less than any of the Masters or Gold Venom. I have to put it under all of those, and there's so many options to have something better, unless you're using it as a double for, like, let's say you're doing Banshee Velvet, you're doing, would it be Banshee Velvet or Gold Armor, and then you could put Golden Sugar in, and then JJ. If you don't have a dupe for any of the others, that's the only way I can see it, and that's for PvE. It doesn't make sense to have PvP. Now, on my own, I am using it because I have crap luck, but there's so many better choices that I don't feel that it deserves to be in the same category. B class, Guardian General, because it's Guardian General. It's an average ant. It's nothing that sets it apart. And Driver and also did get a boost, did get a good DPS boost, but similarly to Golden Sugar, there's just so many other supports that have specific roles or do specific things that a generic support isn't going to help it that much. And Slim March again, I think so. If you're doing teams, right? 1 second. Okay, guys, I actually just went and typed this stuff up for you. I will also put a link for this down below. And if you see, I have first, second, third row for carriers, shooters, and guardians. Now, guardians, I'm only going off of reports I've seen other people use. There is a spot now for guardian mains, especially after this latest update. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So you can see I have first, second, and third row. Just gonna restart this whole thing. Guardians I've only seen used. It's still situational, but you can get away with using them now. Shooters were technically nerfed in the latest update. But they're usable now. The only way I've seen the Guardians work is if you have what's the name, Rock Bandit and Brown Rogue in the same unit, or Mimicry substituting for Brown Rogue. If you don't have those two, I haven't seen any reports where they're not getting beat more often than they're not. So I'm kind of just gonna let those go. You still kind of need Giant Tooth in there for some stall too, to get carriers, especially to stop hitting you so much and doing so much damage. Now for the carriers, technically shooters got nerfed, and carriers and guardians both got buffed. But because of the way the skills are now and with Star Up, they both carriers and guardians actually got nerfed. Giant Tooth, as you can see, he's pretty much in all three. Got a gigantic buff with the debuff and the silence and the suppression. He is now has a spot in every unit that is not PvE, and even in PvE he's doing so much damage that he's still usable. It's kind of ridiculous. So New World General is the preferred. If you don't have New World General for carriers, you probably need, or you're using Giant Tooth. But if you don't have them, you really need Giant Tooth in the second row, or White Velvet, with the way the meta is. Obviously, Venom is preferred, but more people than not are going to be using Chicory or JJ. JJ will be easier to star up because it's easier to get. And for shooters, if you're not using Giant Tooth, you're going to get left behind. And White Velvet, Bullet Ant, or Slim Arch complements Giant Tooth really, really well. If you don't have Giant Tooth, or you're waiting for a dupe, or whatever the case may be, like on my main, I haven't got any support except for Slim Arch. Then you can go to the next one, but you're going to be hurting in PvP because like I'm getting killed by people with 500,000 less power than me, and there's someone specific in my server. His name is Bugs. You guys have seen a couple of his reports. He is beating people with regularly, more often than not, with 600,000 more power than him by using Giant Tooth, Bullet Ant, and JJ. All of which are free to play ants. And you can also use Reapmaster instead of JJ, especially start up. It doesn't make that much. They're pretty interchangeable. Remaster does a bit more damage, but it's a bit more consistent, so JJ is better. Brown Rogue is super situational. It is a good counter still for White Velvet, but not a lot of people are running White Velvet. So I wouldn't worry too much about using him if you are pay to win. You could keep him built up. You can start putting experience on him. Because eventually everything will be fixed. But the teams I would recommend really are New World General for carriers, Giant Tooth, Golden Venom, Sugary Master, JJ. If you had to pick a team for shooters, Giant Tooth, Bullet Amp, or Slim Arch, JJ. Guardians, Bandit, Giant Tooth, Mimicry Master, Brown Rogue, JJ. That's pretty much the state of the ants. This video went a lot longer than I had hoped it would, but I am going to be putting links to this down in the description below, so hopefully this helps you guys out, especially if you're struggling with the new meta. If you have a DPS team, try to get those debuffs and stalls in there, because you're just going to get killed. You're going to be getting murdered. So, y'all have a great day.